Today we have our own home team. Today's program is about the foundation, the Kranzberg Arts Foundation, but also about the program of Artist in Residence. And the call is coming up for that, for people to apply who are interested in being considered as possible Artist in Residence for the future. So we have Katie Engelmeyer, who is the Literary and Visual Arts Manager for the Kranzberg Foundation, and Larry Morris, who is the Director of the Artist in Residence program. So please welcome Katie and Larry.
Thanks, Karen. I'm going to start off the presentation with a little bit about the foundation and what it is we do here and everything that we have to offer to our residents. And then Larry will come in and talk a little bit more about the call as a whole and how the process is going to work for the residency application, as well as the visual arts call for submissions for our solo exhibitions. And there's also a component for the call with music booking. So it's a very holistic call, and we're very excited to present it to you all today. To begin, the mission of the Kranzberg Arts Foundation is through development of artistic venues, studios, and workspaces, short and long-term residencies, and community-based programming. The Kranzberg Arts Foundation provides essential infrastructure for the arts to thrive in the St. Louis region. We take an arts-based approach to community development and ensure that we are aligning our investments with the needs and the vision of the broader St. Louis community. Committed to a diverse, equitable, and inclusive approach, we further economic development and the cultural sustainability while helping establish St. Louis as a premier arts and entertainment destination. So what all of that means is that we provide a lot of infrastructure for the greater St. Louis community so that they have the tools and resources that they need to create their vision and help the arts thrive in the area. We do that through several of our venues. You can see over here we have 3701 Grindle Square. That's one of our newest buildings that we're really excited to house the Story Stitchers in and the St. Louis Symphony. We also have the Grandel Theater and the Dark Room, which is one of our visual arts areas. And I'm actually going to go through all of these slide by slide. So you can just see here how we land in the Grand Center Arts District area on the map. And I'm going to jump on in to the Kranzberg Arts Center. This area is at 501 North Grand in the Big Brothers and Big Sisters and former Woolworths building. And along with the Black Box Theater and the studio, we have over there also a gallery, and this is the floor plan of the residency, Artist in Residence studio space. So this is really exciting. We're going to have 4 studios available, as well as several common areas and visual arts and whole-on residency fellow who's going to reside and have space over here. And we also have a printmaking studio, a dry preparation space, so for trimming, cutting, a light table, and other fabulous resources that my colleague Brandon is working on building out as we speak and as we get ready for welcoming our residents in January. We also have the Grandel and the Dark Room. Within this building is also the Grand Theater. The Urban Ballroom is this image up at the top right area. And the Dark Room is one of our visual arts galleries. It is a lens-based gallery. We prefer to say lens-based rather than photography to honor the film tradition as well. And exhibits in here rotate about once a quarter. And we are looking forward to receiving proposals for this space as well within the next round of residency or calls for submission. This is a building that has a lot of, it's like our anchor in the district because it has a lot of KAF studios as well as office space and Sally's Rooftop, and then Dotzak also has a theater located inside of it, and Turn Restaurant in the corner there. Not that it's really great. And then the Marcel is just behind us here, and the Marcel has a black box theater as well as a dance studio. The Big Top is just across the street to the west, and this is one of our more dynamic venues. It's something of a silver lining that's come out of the pandemic because the Big Top not only is home to our resident circus that just moved in for the month of June this summer, which is really exciting, but it also hosts a number of shows and musical shows and also theatrical shows, as well as proms and galas and graduation ceremonies. It's one of our most versatile venues, and I think it's a really wonderful and unique place to showcase work. The Hanson House is directly across from the Grand Theater and the Grandel. We are in the Hilo building right now, and you can see the floor plans for this space. Upstairs, we are home to several literary arts foundation or organizations, I should say, and also some community workspace here. The foundation has office space towards the front on the second level, and over here you can see the floor plan of the listening room as well as the gallery space just behind us. If you haven't seen Emily Elliott's exhibit After the Disco, she is one of our artists in residence for this cohort, and she has done a wonderful job transforming that space to help depict what it's like to have an anxious thought loop in a fun and joyous way. The dichotomy of that is really interesting to me, and I've really enjoyed working with Emily over the past couple of weeks. And over here we have 3333 featuring Sophie's Artist Lounge. And I've got a floor plan of this as well. Sophie's is the fourth of our visual arts galleries. So I've shown you the gallery at the Kranzberg, the Darkroom Gallery, Hilo Gallery, and Sophie's Gallery. And so that's like our suite of galleries. The really neat thing about any visual artist who showcases with us is that we don't take any commission. So all of the proceeds from any sales of these exhibits goes directly towards the artist. So it's a really unique opportunity both for collectors and for artists because, you know, as a collector, when you make that purchase, you know that 100% of your dollars are going to support the St. Louis artists. And then as an artist, you know that the gallery is not taking any of your income when you make a sale, which I think is really exciting. There's also an artist room here at Sophie's that can be a possible expansion of this gallery. This gallery is usually programmed separately from the call for submissions, although Gina, are we?
Artist room.
The artist room. Okay, thank you. So we are taking proposals for the artist room here. And then just to showcase a little bit more of what we have, this is our map of the walls of Washington. This map is excitingly going to have to be updated very soon because at the end of this week, we will have 3 new murals that we have added to the walls of Washington. One of them is way down at the bottom past the north arrow. And then we have 2 more being added to the alleyway. So those are going to be really exciting additions. It was Lady Pink and her crew are finishing up today out on Leonard, and then Tukwan, an artist from Denver, and our local artist Dan Ricketts, who has St. Louis design or St. Louis mural and sign. We also have Central Stage as a performance venue for our musicians. This is a really neat spot. Everyone like in the district who works here really loves going to shows here and thinks it's a fabulous venue for experiencing live music. 3318 Washington is another one of the buildings within the foundation's footprint, and that's just across the street here. Artist Kababi Bayak has his studio here, so Foundation is also bringing local artists into the Grand Center Arts district footprint. They are working here as well as bringing people to come in and experience art. So that's a really exciting facet of what we're doing. And then here is the image of 3701 Granville Square, which is what I spoke about earlier, being the new home of the St. Louis Story Stitchers, as well as housing part of the St. Louis Symphony while they do their construction that they're building down the street. Our facilities building is at 3204 Sam Shepherd, and that's an exciting one. And then just a little bit more background information about the foundation and what we do here as a whole. We have sponsored the building for the Building Futures company or organization, which was founded in 2012 by Gay Lorberbaum and Paul Krautman and Frank Lorberbaum. And it's a design build workshop that began as a year-round Saturday workshop, but now teaches over 1,000 students in weekday and school classes, after school programs, and extensive summer programming. So it's a wonderful addition. And then we also, as a foundation, external to the residency or anything else, was helped to found the St. Louis Art Place Initiative. It was co-founded by the Incarnate World Foundation and the Kranzberg Arts Foundation in 2019. This is a really fabulous initiative that works with and it was also co-founded with the Regional Arts Commission. And it works to build wealth and equity for low to moderate income artists through home ownership. And the Art Place Initiative secured 25 parcels of vacant and deteriorating properties in Gravelly Park from St. Louis City to build 20 units of single-family housing over the next 3 to 5 years. And these homes will be made available to purchase to artists through an application process. And here is another map of those properties, and in partnership with neighbors, community advocates, and stakeholders, the Art Place Initiative and its community partner, Dutchtown South Community Corporation, will form a community land trust to ensure the mission of the Art Place Initiative is fulfilled in perpetuity. So this is a really wonderful aspect of the foundation. Our executive director sits on the board. So that's a little bit about what we do at the foundation as a whole, and a little bit about the resources that we all have here. Now, my colleague Larry is going to come up and talk about the call and how those assets that I just described are going to be made available to our community members.
Hello, how are you doing today?
All right.
I'm gonna bring some life in here because it's Thursday, it's a beautiful day, and we're doing beautiful things here in the organization, so we're gonna talk about it. So the call. What is the call? So a lot of organizations do open calls for artists, but the Kranzberg Arts Foundation is a really special place because we activate our arts community in such a very strong way. We have a very strong visual team. We have visual members here. We support a lot of musicians. We support the literary arts, and we have a residency, right? And the residency is really, really powerful, especially here in St. Louis, because we're utilizing the infrastructure to really support the arts, the work of our artists in St. Louis. So what we decided to do through many conversations and talks, and I'll go through that, is we wanted to streamline our call into one thing. We wanted to be able to promote it and put it out where people in the community could go to a website, click on what they were interested in and apply for it and put it all together so we could really see and find the artists that are in St. Louis doing the work and really support them. Okay, so with that, if you look at it, it says the Kranzberg Arts Foundation's open invitation to apply, submit, and be considered for the following. So is the notes right? I can read these notes. Okay, good. I want to make sure I can. So I'm gonna move around. I'm gonna get the mic around. We gonna do it this way. So this is what we're looking for our call when it comes to the residency in particular, and I'm gonna break it down into its parts. We're looking for musicians, performance-ready musicians, and I want to emphasize performance-ready. What we give in our foundation is stages for artists to perform on. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about what this is not later, but you have to be performance ready. You have to be able to get on a stage, do shows, make music, and make it happen. Okay, we're looking for visual artists. We don't throw around the word world class, but we're looking for very skilled visual artists that it doesn't matter which walk of life you're from. You can be a 19-year-old who's hitting it on the walls, or you can be a 67-year-old who's great with oil paintings. We're looking for stellar works, okay? And we're looking for literary artists. You can kind of bubble it with the visual arts. We're just looking for stellar artists, but this residency is more about rumination, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. For each one of those, this is what we're looking for in particular. We're looking for 4 visual artists, 2 musicians, and 2 literary artists. And when you break those down, for the 4 visual arts, Katie has spoken so eloquently about it. We are looking to give you infrastructure. So we have the Kranzberg Art Center that's up on Grand that has 4 rooms that we want to house a visual artist. Okay, we want you to live there, ruminate, and work with other visual artists to create stellar works, right? But the thing we changed this year is it's not project-based as much as what can you come up with and make it make sense to us when it comes to your creative process, okay? With the musicians, it changed a little bit this year, performance ready. But the thing we added to the residency this year is that musician, whoever gets chosen to be a part of our residency, you'll end up at Music at the Intersection, which is our festival. So by the time you get through performing in our district and really building up that buzz, you're going to land on a major stage at probably the fastest growing festival in the St. Louis area. And the third part is the literary arts. We really did a lot of committee work discussing what this looked like. And this was one of our heaviest pieces. But we figured the best thing we can do is land a literary artist in this building and let them ruminate and work on art for 18 months, okay? That's what we felt would really benefit our literary artists, okay? I can move on to the next one. So what are the requirements to be a part of this? This has been something that a lot of people have asked me, and I'm gonna really go through it and break it down. We're really looking for people who are 18 years or older. I think it's kind of self-explanatory. We want somebody that's a little bit older that can really get out here and get involved in it. A resident of the St. Louis region. So we put a map up, right? Because the St. Louis region, to whoever you talk to, can be different, but we're talking about the statistical area. Now, it's important that I emphasize this. In our residency, we do not house artists, right? So you have to be able to get here on a regular basis and really utilize the district. We're not housing artists. We don't have housing. It's just not something we include, okay? We're looking for solo artists, all right? I'm for sure that many artists are a part of collectives and groups, and as much as we would love to lift 13 people at once, it's just not what we do. We really want to focus on one individual to give them a meaningful experience within our infrastructure. And of course, I work here. I would love to be a part of this, but unfortunately, I can't. We're not really taking on anybody that's in our organization or closely affiliated with it. No degrees. If you're getting your MFA or you're pursuing your music degree, focus on that right now. And when you get through, come back to us, all right? So exhibit visual artists. So let me talk a little bit about those two. 2 things we're adding to the call is the opportunity for artists to apply to exhibit in our galleries. We have how many galleries, Katie? 4 galleries. And we're also allowing musicians to book to play at our dark room or possibly play at Music at the Intersection. These things will be there as well. But for the exhibiting visual artists, you have to be 18 years or older and you have to be a resident of St. Louis. That's the condition. Okay, so what do we give in our residency, right? So we really thought long and hard about the things that we give to our artists. And when we were able to sit down and think about it, these were the main things that popped up that we give to our artists so they can sustain during their residency. Partnerships and stipends. If you are interested in being a part of our residency, we do give you money. Now, we don't give you $1 million, but we give you something to start. And that number, depending on what you're doing, can vary. But baseline is $2,500. The cool thing about our residency is that we encourage you all to do professional development and programming wellness, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but at base is $2,500. Promotion and marketing. We have Ann in the back who's on our laptop. She's a part of our marketing team. We have people that work with the artists to promote your projects and what you're working on. We really want to tell your story. We're really big on the narrative. We really want to make sure that we utilizing our marketing resources to share your work with the greater area. So, for example, when our artists do their projects, not only do we work to market it on our social media sites, we have Amy Berger, who's a PR person. She writes up a press release. You know, our visual artists get documented. They have people come in and videotape the galleries so you can have these things to really go out and promote the work you were doing. It's like you're creating your reel and your EPKs and your press kits and all of that so you can continue to lift yourself up. Presentation and people. So sometimes you'll hear people say, well, you only giving me a stipend of $2,500. What's the value in the residency? And I said, well, the value in the residency comes in the people. So let's give a good example. Visual is the easiest to quantify off the top of the head. A visual artist comes into our district. We've given you space for 18 months, rent-free, lights on, lights off. You don't pay for that. You want to, let's say, exhibit in one of our galleries. Brandon, who's one of my colleagues, who's the director of galleries, if I'm saying it correctly, he's going to hang everything on the wall, make sure that you get lifted. When it comes to coordinating with your PR and all that, you have Katie, who will be working with you to make sure that that's taken care of. And then we have the wonderful Gina, who oversees it and makes sure that you have everything you need. You really just get a chance to be a part of this and be an artist. We're not expecting you to do the heavy lifting. We do that. And as a residency director, it's my job to connect you to the infrastructure and make sure that you're utilizing. So that's why it's important that we put presentation to people. Placement and proximity. A value of this is where you're located. You're in the Grand Arts District. You are in proximity to so many residential arts organizations, other art establishments. This is just a really fast-growing area that if you make the most of it, you can really make some strong connections with organizations that lift up arts. Professional development. This is something that I added, and this is just a personal thing. We see a lot of artists that come into our district that are phenomenal. They're talented. They have a lot of skills, but they don't really know what it is to do the business side of it. So for me, it's important that we develop you in a way that when you leave this residency, you understand things like your copyright. You understand how to get in the community and connect with other artists. So if you participate in our residency and you fulfill the professional development requirements, I'll give you an additional $500 because I think it's important that you have those skills. And lastly, programming and wellness. One of the things we discussed a lot in our committee was how COVID impacted our artists. So working with Erica, who's over our community engagement, we're going to have things in our residency that really inspire you to connect with your inner being and lift your mental health. Going to the botanical gardens, floating, and doing things that really make artists feel whole. That's important to me. And that's something that we're going to have for our artists for free. It's important that your mental health is right as well. Okay, so let's talk about the things we're not. Because that can be a point of contingency for some folks. They're like, well, I thought this and I thought that. And I really wanted to be clear on what we provide and what we don't. We're not a record label. We don't cut records. We're not Universal, Sony. That's just not what we do. We're not an artist management company. Though my work at times feels like I'm touching artist management, it's really not my job to manage your career. It's my job to make sure you utilize the gifts that the Kranzberg Foundation provides to you and connect the dots. That's what I do. We're not a marketing agency, and I appreciate Katie who put that on there. Although we do provide some marketing components, we will help lift your projects and what you're working on, and we want to share your story. But at the end of the day, we're not pumping out flyers and sitting down with you doing all of that strategy. We have organizations in our ecosystem that we work with to come up with these things, but that's not our primary job. We're not a touring agency. We don't book you to play in Omaha, Nebraska, or Wichita, Kansas. That's just not what we do. We're not a publishing house. We don't publish books. We will work to connect you with people that do that, but we don't do it. And we're not a commercial gallery or a museum, okay? This is private. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And we don't provide housing. You know, in the long run, in the future, I would love to see us be able to do that. But at this current point, it's just not what we do. Okay, so let me talk about the application process a little bit because I think it's important for people to understand that we really thought hard about how to make this equitable as possible and what it looks like when you apply. So when you click on the call and you do your application, how this works. So you apply, of course, and the application's closed. So we're going to be open, and I have the flyers, and I'll give you one before we go. May 30th to July the 10th, all the applications are open. Now, I will say this. Exhibition, visual exhibition, and music booking will be ongoing. It will not close. But the residency itself will close July 10th. Okay? I go through the applications and make sure they land where they need to. I want to be clear. I'm not looking at your work. It's not my job to look at it and decide if this is great or stellar. My job is to just make sure that you fulfill all the requirements of our application and put it in a nice place for me to break it up and give it to our jurors. Applications are randomly assigned to panelists for review. So what we did is we went out into our community. We thought about it from a DEI lens. Who are some of the best artists in our city in both in literary, music, and visual to sit down for 4 to 5 weeks and go through these applications to determine who are the best artists to land in our district. They will work together. It's hands off, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Go through these applications, and they come back with the people that we're going to interview. Each discipline's panelists meet once as a group to make final selections. They'll meet as a group to determine at one time. I won't be in that room. They'll meet with each other. I give them the handbook on the process, but I'm not involved in it, okay? Finalist interviews takes place in the district with KAS staff. Now, this is where it gets a little different. What we want to do is make sure that you're a good fit for the infrastructure that we provide, okay? And I was speaking to somebody before. If we have a visual artist that has their own studio space and everything set up, we don't know if you might be a good fit because we have spaces that we want you to utilize. We want to create that community. There's variables that our staff will understand about the insides of our district that they'll be looking for when they interview the finalists that could land in our district, okay? The winners are selected and announced, so we'll send out an email to all the artists personally, like you've been selected. We'll do a public announcement with the PR and the rollout, but just keep that in your back pocket. And then we'll do an orientation and onboarding in November before Thanksgiving, where I bring the artists in. I work with them to have them understand our team, our staff, how it works here, how everybody, lists the artists, and then they start in January of 2024. So I want to be clear, just to get to this point, I got here a year ago. I've been working on this for a year nonstop just to get to this point where we have our process built out this way, okay? All right, so how does the exhibition work? It's similar, but the timeline is a lot more loose, right? It's not as strict. The artists apply, application closes, the visual team goes through to make sure you fulfill requirements. Again, they're not looking at it like, well, that's who we want. They just want to make sure that you fulfilled all the requirements. Then they're assigned to jurors for review. They will review each application based on the rubric. We create rubrics internally to determine if works or the type of works that we want to land in our district. And again, this is committee work that we look at to make sure that it's vetted correctly. It's no one person that makes those decisions. The finalist interview takes place in the district and the winners are selected and announced. But this is ongoing. So with that, if you apply for that, you might get a call a month later. You might get a call 5 months later. But if you are interested in just doing an exhibition, we encourage you to apply. Okay, so these are some important details to know. And I'm almost done and I'll open up the floor for questions. The residency director does not select residents. I have no hand in picking who's going to land here. It's not my job to pick, and I don't want to be a part of that process. We built out a process to make sure that it was fair and it's equitable, and we picked the right artists based upon skill set in those applications. I've been involved in making sure they're built correctly, but I don't decide. Exhibitions will be selected by a group of panelists chosen by, but independent from the KAF Visual Arts Department. We just spoke about that. our visual arts department will go out and make sure that the people sitting on the panel that's looking at the artwork, they're not internal, they're outside. We look at it through a lot of lenses. We really do. It's not just one thing, it's everything. Music booking is not determined by the residency director. It's straightforward. I don't determine who lands on our stage at Music at the Intersection, the dark room, and all of that. I'm very involved in music, but I don't make those decisions. And again, everything will be available May the 30th. So when you get back from Memorial Day weekend on Tuesday, you'll be able to go on our website, and at 12 p.m. sharp, the applications will be available, and it will close July the 10th. We want to give people enough time to get the applications done. So we kept it open to July the 10th. If you have questions, I have it up here, info@KranzbergArtsFoundation.org. I would love to answer everybody's individual question, and I'm going to be involved in answering, but I not want my emails flooded with a million questions around it. So we try to make sure that we were clear on the website. So if you have any questions, please make sure you go there. And if you get selected, we will contact you directly. It's just one of those things that if we're getting emails every day from people like, did I get it? Did I get it? It'll just take a lot. So just make sure that you know that we will make sure to contact you if you're selected. So before I have you jump back up here, Katie, and we just go at it together, is there any questions about any part of this process and whatnot? Yes.
Before you dive into questions, I just want to make a couple notes. Karen was talking about Jessica Atkins, our current president. She has a wonderful event this Sunday at Central Stage where you can listen to her new polka album with her band, Soprano Polka. Just want to make that. And then also, just because of the audience, I want to make sure if there are any artists who might be interested in St. Louis Arts Initiative, which Kate mentioned, affordable housing for sale for artists. Keep a lookout on the website for the next round of applications, which should go up in the next year or so.
I think you have a high noon for that, so she can come up and discuss that. So yes, thank you. So any other questions about this? Yes, sir.
I may have missed this, but are there geographic limitations on the artists who can apply?
Yeah, so we want you in a greater metropolitan region.
What is that?
So let me go back to. So the definition that we have is these counties right here around the St. Louis area. Okay, we talked about this. The problem is if you are from the Chicagoland area, you want to come here, we can't house you. And you won't be able to really utilize the infrastructure because you're going to be trying to figure out a way to get here in 4.5 hours every other day or every other week. So I would say to you, if you are in a good hour and a half radius, you should be fine. But once you start to push 2, 3, and 4 hours, I don't think this is the residency for you because just of the transportation restrictions and whatnot. But we've had artists that are from all over the area that make this work. It's just like Scooter Brown, for example, he's from the East Side and he was a part of our residency, our musician residency. It worked out just fine. But we wouldn't house anybody. So we wouldn't want you to come from 300 or 400 miles out. It just wouldn't work out. I hope that answers your question. No problem.
I was just looking at it. It was like you said you were saying County that this group is also part of your.
Yes. And this is the thing that is important to understand. You know, the Kranzberg Arts Foundation is in the city proper, but we are open to the greater St. Louis community. This is gifts that are given to everybody in our region. So we don't want people to think that this is, I'm St. Louis loyal all day, but it's not just the St. Louis city or county thing. You can come, if you're in a greater region and you want to experience this art, if you're willing to make the trip, the doors are open, and if you're wanting to be a part of this residency and you can get here on a regular basis and make the most of it and you're in the region, come on and apply. Yep. Any other questions?
Well, this is so exciting. How do you know? Do you have to have a stamp of approval that you are an artist, or are you looking at the man in the mirror that says you're an artist?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think it's open. I mean, I've always looked at art as, subjective. What I might perceive as art may not be the same thing Katie perceives, but I feel if you have a passion and you're willing to quantify what this is to you, you should apply,
So you don't need a body of work behind.
I think a body of work helps, but I think we made our application a scenario where it might be someone who has 6 or 7 pieces they created and they are stellar, but they would have never taken the chance to apply for a residency. We're looking for people like that might be willing to step out and do something. We try to keep low-hanging fruit with this. We did, the biggest thing is making sure that the geographical and some of the other technical pieces are in place. But as far as the art, it's vast, it's wide. We really want artists, especially younger artists who might have never taken that risk, or even older artists that's like, I've done this for 40 years, but I've never thought I could be a part of a residency and I got time. You can apply for it as well. So I think we really try to make it as broad as we can. We're clear on what we deliver and what we don't deliver and what we can't do, but we want it to be open, if that answers the question.
Thanks for outlining exactly what Kranzberg provides to artists. What are artists expected to deliver as part of this residency? Are there things that, is that like a loose expectation based on an artist basis, or are there like things you're looking for as deliverables from this?
So when it comes to the different pieces of it, I can kind of speak to that, but then I'll speak to what I know I'm looking for and what I know my colleagues and I speak to. So on the literary side, you just sit and write. We expect for you to create. So let's use examples of residents who are here. Mario Farwell was in our program. It's just wrapping up. He was trying to do a theater play, but it didn't work out. But he said the benefit was he finished a play he had been working on for like 10, 15 years. So that to us is value. Or musicians who have been wanting to work on an album or something, they have the time now to really do that and get a chance to play. So on the music side, we're looking for you to perform regularly. We'll sit down and meet with you when you get in a district and say, hey, what's a good schedule? So maybe you'll play the dark room 3 or 4 times in Central Stage 2, leading up to music at the intersection. So you will need to be active in that capacity. In the visual side, it's really cool because we used to, and it's not that we're not doing projects, but the visual team is thinking more broadly. Maybe it's not a project, but maybe it's a community art project that you want to work on that's a little bit different. So the scope is much more broad than it used to be. But I think for us, we're not looking for you to come in and every week I'm meeting with you like you have a picture painted or you have a song recorded. We want you to maximize your artistic ability and utilize this to the fullest. I say that this is a residency, but it's also to me a little bit like an incubator, right? You get a chance to land in our district and not worry about a lot of things that artists struggle with. A lot of artists struggle with, where am I going to put my studio? You don't have to worry about that. Who's going to help me hang my artwork? You don't have to worry about that. Who's going to book my show? We've already got that covered. So you get a chance to really use your skills to the fullest, and that's the return on investment for us when you come in. Do amazing work, and then we're looking in the newspaper and we're like, wow, they've shot to outer space. That's what this is for us. So I hope that answered that.
Is there a priority given to folks who apply earlier?
No, there's no priority. If you decide to do this July the 9th at 7 p.m. and your application is good and the panelists look at it and they think it's great, that's it. So there's no priority, but with the residency part in particular, I will close it down because if we keep it open too long, we can't really go through those applications. Also, this is important to talk about. We have some really stellar jurors this year that are going to be looking at these. These are artists that are traveling all over the world and doing major things in our community and abroad. I have to be conscious of their time. So if they're willing to give me 4 to 5 weeks of their life, I'm going to take it. And we compensate our jurors and our panelists. And I think I should share this too. We keep them offline. We don't really announce who they are because we want them to be able to look at it without people approaching them, trying to really sway or, you're my best friend. Make sure that you're looking at mine a certain way. So when we're done with the program, when we're done with the jury process, I would be more keen to speak to who we had select because I think that would be important to share. But right now, they've committed. They're great. you should apply. Anybody else?
Would be alter exhibition. Do you require the application process? Do you have to have all the paintings, like say, as an artist, already done and a proposal for exhibition, or is it loose and you can continue to develop the exhibition?
I'm actually kick this to Gina. What do you say about that?
So in the past, all work for our call for exhibits had to be completed. And throughout the last 4 years, we realized that is not realistic. In certain capacities, that things shift, pieces are created in that time span from application to exhibit. I would say, and I would encourage you to have a very, very strong sense and intent of exhibit, of pieces that already do exist that can be popped up on the wall or onto a pedestal. But the reality check is that from time of application to time of schedule in one of our 4 galleries, we are nimble and will work with you to curate and to lift it as an experience that amplifies your work.
Just to add to what Gina said, I think as an artist, a visual artist, it's important to keep in mind that the pieces that you submit are going to be what represents you as an artist to the jurors without them knowing anything else about you besides what's in the application. And so I would definitely encourage you to submit work that you're most proud of, work that you're most excited about, and like Gina said, work that you would be okay with hanging on the wall if you are chosen, because I think that ultimately ends up being the best representation of you as an artist and puts your best foot forward.
I have another thing to add to that. As far as documentation, I just during a situation where I was going through dozens and dozens of applications for another institution. So I just had an experience where I was a juror. And I was really taken back and baffled by some of the documentation that I was seeing over and over again. And I really encourage folks to find a room with a window and photograph on a cloudy day. And if you have discomfort of documentation of your own work, there's the YouTube. There are different resources. Because I would hate for stellar works to be discounted just because the documentation isn't. I was looking at piles of work in a corner of a studio, and I didn't know what to look at as, is this an installation piece? Is this a painting? Is this a sculpture? So just in terms of the importance of how we as artists document our work and should put our best foot forward. Sometimes scanning poetry at Kinko's is better than just taking a cell phone photograph of it. So I really encourage people to put that extra effort into the documentation process. Again, info at, if there's any questions about that, but also this thing called the internet really helps with that as well.
And I'll say one more thing before I open it back up and we'll wrap up. This residency is interesting to me because there's a lot of things we provide, but it's really what you make it and how you utilize it. I can give you stories of residents who take this residency and maximize it. Like we had a film element, we pulled it out this cohort. I plan on bringing it back in 2 years, kind of reconfiguring it, making it work. But that resident was finding every location in this area to film their film because they had access to us to unlock doors and go in front of murals and you can see it. You know, then you have other residents that don't really utilize it the way that they could, and it may not give them the return on investment that they want. The beauty in this is that you pretty much have a house with a refrigerator and everything you need to just move around and do what you do. So I would tell folks that are interested in this residency it's a commitment. You know, we do a lot of lifting, but if you come in and you do what you need to do, I promise you the testimonials from the residents who have utilized it are bar none. So serious artists, you know, even if you're still developing, as Gina has already said, we always developing as artists. But are you serious about your process and your presentation? And this will be a great residency for you. Anybody? Yes. So you have that option. So again, that was the bucket that we thought we had to think the hardest on. We can't publish a book for you, you know, and we can't do certain things in the literary world, but we want to give you the space with the highlight, because it's not even called the Kranzberg Writers in Residency. It's the high-low. We want you to live here, right? So if you're working on something and you want to do a reading, you have to access the book, the space, and do those readings. Maybe you're a poet and poetry jams are your thing. You can work with our booking team and book regular poetry jams. The biggest thing is we want you to create in a literary space that suits you, and we're not trying to force you to come up with a project because it's different for writers. So the access to the space and the rumination is, we feel, what the value is. You live here. 18 months you live here. How do you want to utilize this space? How do you want to do your literary works? That's big. Maybe you're working on a book and you want to come to the High-Low Cafe at 9 and work from 9 to 1 a.m. writing your book. You can do that, you know. So that's what we're really big on the literary side.
And also the proximity.
Yep. Yeah, proximity is huge. So upstairs, we have our author for Black children's literature. We have St. Louis Poetry Center. The Poet Laureate is supposed to land over there eventually. It's a lot of organizations in the literary space that are, and I'm missing some, it's a lot. But there's a lot of proximity and everybody communicates and talks with each other. So it's a great opportunity if you're living upstairs doing literary works.
Well, my heart is beating.
I love your energy.
I mean, it's so exciting, such a great opportunity to just see what that creative spirit will build.
Yeah.
I might apply.
You should. And so to segue out, so the call goes live. The website is up now, so you can see all the different things. So if you're interested in any one of these areas we just spoke of, there's a button you can click on and read about it. We'll go live Tuesday at 12, and it will be open to July 10th. We tried our best to make sure that it's clear as possible. But if you miss something, info at, as Gina just said, and let us know. And we are more than willing to make sure that you understand what it is. And we encourage you to share it with everybody, your friend, your grandchild, your cousin, anybody that's an artist that's serious about it, they can apply for this.
Oh.